What's up, guys? The goal for today is to get this Mini Cooper in better mechanical condition than when I bought it. So this car has kind of just been my fallback daily for a while. I haven't been able to drive it in about 6 months because it's got a leaky water pump that it's just been on the back burner. So when I bought this car, it was pretty much mechanically sound except for a valve cover leak, which I never fixed. And then I kept driving it around, started having problems with like boost leaks, which I think are related to the blow-off valve, which I'm not gonna be tackling in this video. I will look at the wiring, and if the wiring's bad for the blow-off valve, I might redo it because it looked like it was a little messed up. But I kept driving it, and then it started leaking more oil. I think it's leaking from the oil pan a little bit, but it's definitely leaking from the turbo feed. So that's gonna be replaced. The air conditioning started making noise. And so I have a new air compressor as well. The timing chain's starting to rattle. I have a timing chain. So I'm just gonna be replacing the tensioner. You guys saw me replace just the pulley on the tensioner, but now I'm actually gonna just replace the whole tensioner. I got a new belt, new air conditioning compressor, new water pump with the gasket, new timing chain kit. I'm gonna be pulling off the oil pan and resealing it. I also have a new turbo feed and turbo oil drain and valve cover gasket set, and I'm gonna be replacing all of that stuff in this video. So to be doing all of that stuff, I'm actually going to rip the whole front end off of this car. I think it's just gonna make it easier to work on everything. And I mean, I'm gonna pull everything off. The AC is already discharged, so we can just pull off the condenser and everything off the front. We're gonna push this car back as far as we can that the garage will still close so that we have loads of room up here to work. And then I'm just gonna start ripping stuff off of the front of this car. All right, so the car is up in the air, and I did wash the car. It was like covered in shit because it's been sitting for so long. I tried to spray underneath as best as I could, but you can't get it perfect. So I jacked it up, and there's like a bunch of spider webs and stuff under there. So I took the broom and started sweeping it all up as best as I could. And there were like spiders falling onto the ground, and I was killing them. And I'm not like deathly afraid of spiders like some people are, but I killed about 12 spiders, and then I was just like, you know what, this is not great, but I kept going anyway, and I found one that looked like a nest, and I poked it, and like 100 little baby spiders crawled out of it. And then I was like, all right, time for a different approach. So I just sprayed the whole front of the underside of the car with Raid, and spiders are just dropping out of this thing like crazy. So there's hundreds of spiders under this car right now, and I don't really want to be working under them. So I'm gonna let the Raid do its thing, and then I'm gonna come back later. All right, I let the Raid settle a bit under there. Hopefully all the spiders are dead, or most of them. I'm gonna continue at this point, taking the front end apart, and I'm just gonna wear gloves. And yeah, we're gonna take the wheels off, the front bumper off, grill, all of that stuff, maybe the fender liners as well. Let's go ahead. Man, I feel like I look like a bum. Oh man, I'm sweaty. I got stuff all over me, but I got the front end off of the car. It's down here. I completely forgot about all of my headlight wiring, and all of that went up into the cowl and all the way to the battery. So I had to take out the whole cowl and all that stuff and undo the wiring. Some of the headlight wiring stayed, like the HID harness is still in here, and the DRL wiring, as well as the DRL wiring down there is all still in there, but all the RGB stuff was connected at the battery. So I had to pull all of that out, which is a little bit extra work. But now the front end is off the car and we can easily get to every single thing that I want to work on. This belt with the tensioner right here, and all of these oil leaks, all the turbo lines that we're going to be replacing right there. Super easy to get to now. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up and get back at this another day. All right, guys, we are out here another day working on the Mini Cooper, and today I'm going to take off all this heat shielding and the downpipe here to see if we can get more access to the oil feed and drain for the turbocharger system. So we're gonna take all that off and get some better access and get this part of the engine cleaned up because there's so much oil caked on. Actually, this is the dirtiest motor I think I've ever seen. From top to bottom, 360 degrees around, pretty much it's just covered in oil. So we're gonna get rid, I think most of it's coming from the valve cover, but we're gonna get all this taken care of. I'm gonna start by taking off the stuff on the front. All right, I got the downpipe off and all the shielding and stuff so we can see really, really good in here. So what normally is leaking in this area is usually this turbo feed, as you can see, and it leaks from right here. And as you can see, mine is actually perfectly fine. I'm gonna replace it anyway. It looks like the majority of the leak here is coming from a few different things. So you can see it's oily up here, which is coming from the valve cover. So a lot of this oil is probably just that valve cover leak, but it's especially oily right here and right there, which is making me think that this oil filter housing right here is leaking. I did buy all of the seals for this. I bought the seals that go between the block and the whole housing, and I bought the seals that go in right here between the oil cooler and the housing as well. I don't know if it's leaking here. It looks like it could be. And maybe the drain, the oil drain is also maybe leaking a little bit, but it seems to be in one piece and it's clamped pretty good right here. I did get another replacement of these. So I am going to replace these lines just because I'm already in here and I already bought them. But the main focus here to fix this oil leak issue is actually gonna be in this guy right here. So before I even begin with any of this, I'm actually gonna spray all of this off with brake cleaner and try to get this as clean as possible so it's just not nasty while I'm working in here. What's up, guys? We're back at it the next day. I'm gonna get back to cleaning, and I think the first thing that I'm gonna do, because it's the thing I wanna do the least, is actually the oil pan. So I'm gonna get spraying all around the oil pan. I bought some more brake cleaner, get that as cleaned off as I possibly can, and then drain the oil and drop the pan. Okay, I actually changed my mind. I wanna get this a little bit more clean. So I'm actually going to take off this AC compressor since I'm replacing it anyway. So we just got to take off this belt, essentially just loosen this tensioner, which is this right here. Super easy to get to with the front off. Take off the belt, and then I think we have 3 or 4 bolts holding on this compressor, and we also have to undo this line right here. And we'll pull that off. All right, so we have the oil pan off and completely cleaned out. I cleaned all of the RTV off of this using this guy, which this does not take away from any of the metal, but it does wear off the paint, which on a steel oil pan could be problematic if it rusts. But this whole top side is going to be covered in RTV anyway, which should prevent it from rusting. I cleaned out the pan, any shavings or anything like that. So it's good to go. So now we just gotta go ahead and clean this side. I'm gonna try to take a peek in the oil pickup and just make sure there's nothing in there. And then I need to take a razor blade and cut all the RTV off around the side there. And then I'm gonna use this guy again to get the remaining RTV off, which should be a little bit easier on this side because it doesn't have the grooves in it like this does.
All of you, baby, baby, nothing less than that will do, baby, baby.
So I just had to double check that I don't need the oil pan off to do the timing chain, which I don't. So we're gonna put the oil pan back on with new sealant. I'm gonna do one final wipe of the oil pan, and then I'm gonna do a 3mm bead of RTV around the whole oil pan on the inside of the holes, and then loop around each hole as well. Before we put it up, we're gonna do one last wipe with brake cleaner around the mating surface there. We're gonna put it up, put a couple bolts in to hold it in place, and then we're just gonna finger tight the bolts all the way around. Let it sit for 10 to 20 minutes, and then torque it the rest of the way, and then it'll be done.
Take me higher, higher, higher. You set my soul on fire, fire. Baby, you get me like no one before. Yeah, you don't need me, but you want me more and more.
We got the oil pan on now. I did use Honda Bond RTV. I use kind of a lot, which you probably shouldn't do in case RTV can get into the oil pan. But I think I let it tack up enough that it was okay. I didn't really have to wipe up that much around the outside here, so I probably didn't on the inside either. Yeah, I used Honda Bond because I had a bunch of it laying around rather than getting the black RTV. Even if it's not the right stuff, I can promise you this is going to be better than it was because it was leaking pretty bad. So should be good to go on that. And now we can continue on to one of the next things, either this stuff right here or the timing chain. I might knock the timing chain out next because I'm not looking forward to it. So that might be what we tackle next. All right, guys, new day. We're working on the Mini again, and we're gonna start on the timing chain this time. I've watched a bunch of videos on this. One's pretty good. I think it's FCP Euro video. I'm going to put a card to it in the corner here. Go ahead and click on that video and watch it on how to change the timing chain. If you're on a phone, I'll put it in the description as well. And do yourself a favor and watch 2 videos on how to do this. I also watched the Eric the Car Guy video. I'll link that one as well. But the other video is a little bit better, so watch that one first. So I need to start taking stuff apart. I've already taken apart most of the stuff that you need to take apart to do this, but I still gotta get this air box out. I'm gonna take this off. Valve cover's gotta come off, and this motor mount has gotta come out as well. And we'll be supporting the oil pan with the jack and a block of wood. This is not a how-to. Like I said, go ahead and watch that other video. I'm gonna go ahead and get cracking on this. I did also want to mention that you do need special tools to do this timing chain kit. I'm gonna link those in the description as well as all of the parts that I bought, like the timing chain kit and everything. So all of that will be linked below if you want to take a look at that.
And I know, I'm sure, I feel with you. So just stay, don't stay, I'm yours, babe. It's true. You take me.
All right, so we have all of the intake off, well, except for the manifold, but all of the rest of the intake is off, and we have the valve cover off, and I do believe that this has been replaced at some point because everything in here actually looks pretty good. There's not like a ton of slack on the chain. I feel like it was kind of making noise when it was cold, but maybe that was something else I was hearing. But this isn't broken at all. It's actually in really good shape. There's not any signs of breakage. It is like a little, I don't know if that's like deformed right there or if that broke, but it seems structurally good still. It doesn't feel brittle or anything like that. But one thing that you can tell is that this valve cover was leaking so bad. Look at all of that buildup. And it goes pretty much all the way around the motor. It's not too bad on the back here. But this front corner is really bad. And this whole front end right here is really bad. And this side is really bad. So that's where pretty much all of my oil on the front and side were coming from. So I'm sure I got some leaks from the turbo stuff, and we'll take care of those as well. But I think most of it was coming from this valve cover. I don't think the oil pan was leaking that bad either, but it was definitely leaking. So I'm glad I resealed that. Anyway, we're gonna continue on and see what we need to do next. So the next step is to take out the spark plugs, and I'm gonna show you guys something. This in this package is a thin wall 14 millimeter 12 point BMW spark plug socket. These are super cheap. I think I paid like 10 bucks for this or something like that. I'll put a link to this in the description. I bought this because I was told that a regular socket won't fit down there. This is a 12 point 14 millimeter Craftsman standard deep well socket from my little Craftsman kit over there. And this fits perfectly. So you could just use this to loosen these, and then one of your spark plug tubes to pull out the spark plugs, and save yourself 10 bucks if you have a socket that already works. I bought that because I didn't want to risk it, but I kind of wish I would have saved the 10 bucks now. I'm going to go ahead and use that because then I don't have to use a spark plug tube to pull it out. That'll just grab the spark plugs as well. My crank lock tool didn't fit. I had to grind the edge off here because it was hitting the turbo. So this is not the one that I'll be linking. It did work otherwise, but I don't really find that acceptable. I'll be linking a different one in the description. Let me know if it works. All right, so I thought I bought everything that I needed to do this job, but I didn't have a crank seal. I also don't have the O-rings that go on these guys right here. And I was just gonna replace them anyway, or just put them back in. But as you can see right here, this crank seal is pretty nasty. Now I don't know if the oil was coming from the valve cover up top, but chances are it was coming from the crank seal. So it would be kind of stupid for me to do all of this work without replacing that seal. I'm gonna order one, and since I'm ordering that, I'm gonna order 2 of these bolts with the O-ring on them, and I'm also gonna order some O-rings for the AC system so I can replace those as well. All right guys, since we're waiting on a new crank seal and timing guide pins to come in the mail, we're going to start working on the oil lines for the turbo again, and then we'll replace the water pump, and then we'll just put this project on hold until I get the rest of those parts in. All right, everything there is taken off. As you can see, we have this whole oil filter housing down here in this bowl. Here's the turbo oil feed. This is problematic because of these joints right here. They're known for failing and leaking. So everybody pretty much that has to replace this replaces it with an upgraded part. This is an aftermarket oil feed kit. I don't like that there's so many connections. They are AN, so they probably won't leak if you get them tight enough, but there's a lot of points where this could leak at, which I'm not a huge fan of. However, this is what people install. I'm gonna put a link to this in the description in case you want it. I paid, I think, less than 50 bucks for it. So definitely worth it, especially if this will prevent any leaks in the future. All right, so now we got this thing fully apart. This actually looked okay. I don't know if it was leaking. There's a little bit of buildup right there, which I don't necessarily like. I'm gonna clean it off. Over here, there's that one. Yeah, I don't think it was leaking past the buildup, but these all look kind of okay. I'm gonna replace them anyway. The ones on this side, obviously that one right there is ripped, and I think this part was sealed. This side was definitely leaking. So we're gonna go ahead and replace all of these. So I will throw links to these in the description as well. I got cheaper brands because I'm trying to save some money. Hopefully they don't leak. If they do, then I'll have to do the job again, which will suck. But these are the main seals, and then these are the coolant or the oil cooler seals. Had to get 2 different brands. I think they were kind of hard to find. I don't know, I'll link them in the description, but I'm gonna go ahead and replace them.
You set my soul on fire, fire, baby.
All right, so this is all hooked back up. As you can see, we have the new oil feed running back there and a new oil drain. This coolant line is hooked back up. I didn't replace these washers. Hopefully it doesn't leak, but if it does, super easy to access. I just need 2 new copper washers to put on there, and we can do that with everything back on the car, no big deal. All of this stuff is hooked up. This is bolted in. I don't know where all this wiring is supposed to sit, so I'm gonna have to kind of look that up and see if I can figure it out. I might have routed this wrong up here, but I should be able to reroute it with everything still in the car if it is wrong. And then if it's right, the clips are all broken and stuff, so I'll probably just like zip tie it out of the way. But yeah, anyway, oil leak stuff is done. Next, we're gonna move on to the water pump. All right, took a small break and now I'm back out here again. So we're gonna move on to the water pump, which is back in there. We're gonna actually put the jack with a block of wood underneath the oil pan and take out this mount. I am gonna put it back in temporarily while we're waiting for timing chain parts, but for now we're gonna take it out and we're gonna see if that gives us better access to the water pump. The water pump is right up here. So we're gonna take out this friction pulley and take off the water pump pulley, obviously. And at that point, we're probably gonna clean off this section of the engine with brake clean. And then yeah, we're gonna get to the bolts for the water pump, whichever way possible, from the top or the bottom. We might have to drop the engine down a little bit, but it shouldn't be too difficult. So just so you all know, I have a bunch of shit everywhere. So it's gonna be hard for me to get a shot of the water pump with the camera. I'm gonna try it anyway, but that's also where I have to be working, so you might not see a whole lot. All right guys, so it might be kind of hard to see. You can see that shiny water pump behind that pulley. All fully installed now. I put the mount back in so that I don't have to keep the jack under there while we're waiting for parts. And then once the parts come back in, then we'll finish off the timing chain and the AC compressor, as well as replacing this tensioner with a brand new one. Over here is all done. I still don't really know what to do with this wiring. I'm probably just gonna zip tie it out of the way. I don't know exactly where it goes, but it should be fine right there. And then there's one more thing that I have to take a look at, and that is this aftermarket pigtail adapter for the solenoid for the forge blow-off valve right here. As you can see, it's all like zip tied and electrical tape down here. So I'm gonna peel this back and take a look at it because I have been having engine codes for the blow-off valve, as well as like a rubber banding with the boost, which I'm told that this could actually be caused by carbon buildup in the valves, which I'll take care of in a later date, but this doesn't look good. So I'm gonna take a look at this and see how bad the wiring actually is, and potentially either repair it or order a new one of these from Forge. I'm not sure how much that'll cost, but I'm not happy with the way that it looks right now. Yeah, that'll probably be done off camera, and we'll pick back up on this when I have the extra parts for the timing chain. All right guys, we're back. We have everything that we need to finish this car. We got another shipment that came in, and so we can start getting things put back on the car after we change the timing chain, which is gonna be good because like if you look in here, Like there's stuff everywhere and I can't even step. So kind of just like stuck in this little area, and I can't wait to get stuff put back on here. So ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's go. I didn't show it, but I did. I don't think I showed it. I think it wasn't recording, but I did torque these top ones. This one, 20 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. That's 20 Newton meters plus 180 degrees. To get the actual angle right, I use this little gauge thing that I have. Put a link to that in the description. And then down here, this is 50 Newton meters plus 180 degrees. I just did that. And I had to use this breaker bar, ratcheting breaker bar to get enough on it, which is kind of sketchy. I was afraid the crank lock was gonna snap because it's just a little tiny pin, but it held up, so we're good. We'll continue on. All right, guys, my phone filled up, so I had to get the videos taken off of it. I have the new tensioner on, and then I ran into an issue, and that is that my new air compressor, this is the old one, new one's in the box upstairs, doesn't fit. I ordered it from Rock Auto. I did it the right way. I went on like one of the OEM mini websites, and I looked up the actual part number for my model of car, year, everything, and I matched that part number to what I bought on Rock Auto. I double checked, they sent me what I bought and it's wrong. So I think part of it is the fault of Rock Auto where they list the same part number for different styles of compressor, but also part of it is my fault because it clearly said the style of compressor that was on there and I bought the wrong one. So you can't really know until you look at the one on your car because they're all different, but I made this mistake and now it's been 39 days since I received it. Rock Auto will only accept returns 30 days and they have no form of customer service whatsoever. It's impossible to get a return on an item after 30 days through Rock Auto, which is straight BS because this was $200 and now I'm just out $200, I guess. So I'm gonna contact UAC tomorrow and I'll let you know how that goes. That's the company that made the compressor. Maybe they'll be willing to work with me. If not, I guess I'm gonna try to sell this one and buy another one. So for now, we are just going to put the mount back on and get the engine supporting itself so it's not just on the jack until I sort this whole thing out. So I just went ahead and threw the old air compressor on just so I could get the belt on, make sure the tensioner is good and stuff. I found out that this aftermarket tensioner is now a 25 mil instead of whatever the other size was. I think I was using a 13/16 inch wrench. And also now the mini serpentine tool won't work on this, which is really, really stupid. Like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but I guess I have to get a different wrench now. But I guess it'll be a bigger wrench, so maybe it'll fit from underneath better. Yeah, anyway, I did that, and then I put the mount back on right here, and I just threw the valve cover on. It's not actually bolted down. I still need to replace the gasket and stuff. But this is probably gonna sit for a little while now while we try to figure out that situation. And we'll pick back up on this later. All right, guys, it's a few days later, and I have an update. I contacted UAC about that AC compressor, and they were not willing to help me out whatsoever. They did hear me out my whole story, and then they were just like, nope, sorry, can't help you. And I said, well, I can't contact Rock Auto. They don't have any customer service. And then they said, we have an email address for Rock Auto, and they gave it to me. So I emailed Rock Auto, and Rock Auto has agreed to take it back. So that's super cool. Thank you so much, Rock Auto. I've gone ahead and shipped it back. I'm waiting for them to get it, waiting for me to get my refund, and then I'll order the new one. So just so I can get this car going in the meantime, I'm gonna put the old one back on. It does sort of work. There's gonna be no refrigerant, so it's not gonna work, but the pulley spins, so it can be a placeholder. We're gonna go ahead and continue on with this. I need to pull this valve cover back off and clean it, and then we're gonna replace the gaskets in it and put it back on. And then we're gonna continue with the intake stuff that I took off the back. We're gonna get all of that put back on. All right, so I took that electrical tape off of here and expected there to be some kind of botched repair. There is there is heat shrink here, so I'm not sure if that's part of a repair. I don't really want to pull it off, so I think I'm actually probably just gonna end up ordering a new one of these pigtails. But for now, I'll just plug this in as is, and hopefully it stays kind of working. All right, we're pretty much wrapped up with all of this stuff over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the down pipe back on with new gaskets, and then we can worry about getting the front bumper on. All right, just an update. It's nighttime now. I had the oil feed line rip on my Civic, which caused a big old mess in the driveway. I had to take care of that. I went to the store and I got a new copper washer for the drain plug for the oil pan because I noticed that it was leaking. It was dripping with whatever residual oil was still in the pan. So I got that replaced and that's properly torqued now. All of this stuff is on. We are gonna be replacing this, but these lines right here are not gonna be undone again. So I'm actually going to put new O-rings on. I purchased this and it has all of the O-rings for the entire AC system for this specific car. So I gotta pull those O-rings off and figure out which ones of these are the replacements. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace those O-rings and then we'll bolt the front end on. All right, I'm at a place where I'm comfortable stopping for the night. We have the front end on, all of the intercooler pipes tightened up here, right here, and down there. We have this in place, we have this in place, we have this reconnected. The washer fluid bottle is reconnected and not leaking. I don't have any of the bolts holding this stuff in except for these two right here. And we have the AC lines hooked up, we have the coolant lines hooked up, we have the radiator fan plugged in. We have the air conditioning compressor plugged in, even though it's not gonna work. And that's where we're leaving off tonight. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get all these bolts holding this front end on, put back in. They're in a pile right there. And then we're gonna get these lights wired back up. I'm also gonna plug in a battery charger so that can charge because this car's been sitting for a long time. Okay, I couldn't get the Bluetooth thing to pair with my phone because it sucks. And then I got all of the headlights wired up and they are so broken. They need to be completely rebuilt at this point with all new parts. This ring gets stuck sometimes, but it's the most working thing out of this headlight. Red channel's broken on the halos on both sides. Half of this thing is stuck to blue and the other half still changes colors. The demon eyes, red and blue work on this side. Only red works on that side. Green doesn't work on either side. So they're super broken. They need to be completely redone. So I might do it at some point, but for now, I'm just gonna use them as is. All right, anyway, the big wiring rat's nest is all piled up right there, but it's neat and zip tied. We can go ahead and put the cowl back on and continue bolting the front end together. All right, the cowl's back on. It's super dirty and was a pain in the butt to install. It doesn't want to sit right. I think it's like warped and stuff. I'm not sure, but it's on. So we're gonna move on to the bumper and the front grille next. All right, guys, we have a bit of a problem. So I went to vacuum fill the coolant. I have not put any coolant in yet, but I'm gonna show you how this works. We have it hooked up to the cooling system right here and it's sealed. We can create a vacuum and then there's a leak coming from over in that corner near the water pump, but I replaced the water pump with a new gasket, so I really don't know what it could be, but here I'll show you. So we have this open. We're gonna go ahead and start the air compressor. We got vacuum right there, and then we'll shut it and turn this off. And as you can see, vacuum is dropping, and I can hear a noise coming from down there. So I need to figure out where this vacuum leak is, or where this coolant leak is. All right, so after some research, I'm pretty sure it's the plastic crossover coolant pipe that goes from the thermostat housing to the water pump that's actually cracked. That's where it sounded like it was coming from. Seems like it's leaking closer to the water pump, but I'm just gonna pull all of that stuff out and take a look at it. But first, before I do any of that, I'm just gonna start the car and make sure that I did the timing chain job correctly because that's causing some of my anxiety. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick. We'll see how it sounds. I'm probably gonna shut it off pretty quick because I don't want it to get hot if I'm just gonna work on it right away. All right, it's actually sounding really, really good. It sounds way better than it did before I started. So that's awesome. It's like super quiet. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. All right, let's go ahead and take all this shit out. All right, guys, I got it out. It was actually not too bad. I think it took me like 30 minutes. Here's the thermostat housing. The thermostat is built into it, so I think I'm gonna replace this just to be sure, especially because they get old and brittle as well. And I would hate to have to do this whole thing again. And then here's the pipe. This is the side that was on the thermostat housing, and this side came right out. So as you can see, it's busted. And that's the side that was at the thermostat. So that's, or at the water pump housing. So that's why the water pump was leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and order a new one of those and we should be good to go. All right, guys, it's 9 a.m. and the day of the Woodward Dream Cruise, which I want to take this car to. So I'm gonna try to spend about an hour putting it together. I have the thermostat housing and the crossover pipe, so I'm gonna do the best I can to install those as fast as possible. All right, so here's the pressure that it's holding. I put it to 15 exactly about 10 minutes ago, and now it's sitting just under 15, so there might be like a small pinhole leak somewhere. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm wondering if maybe just like heat cycling everything will get it to seal perfectly, but we'll see. I think it's definitely sealed enough to keep the car cool. If there is a small pinhole leak, I'll know because I'll like smell antifreeze a little bit or something. But I'm gonna go ahead and put everything together the rest of the way and take it for a test drive. All right, guys, it's days later. I did not end up taking this car into the Dream Cruise. It has 3 pretty massive issues when I went to test drive it. Number 1, it's still leaking a ton of oil right onto the exhaust, so bad that it was like smoking out the engine bay. I don't think it was residual because I feel like I did a pretty good job at cleaning everything off. Maybe a little bit further back it could have been, but I don't think so. So I need to take off the heat shields and figure out where it's leaking. Number 2, the air conditioning compressor was just making absurd noises. So I ended up, I mentioned that I returned the other one. I got the money back for that. I ordered a new one and I have it here right now. So I'm gonna throw that in so I don't have any like crazy pulley noises coming from the accessories. Fingers crossed alternator's fine. The third issue is that I'm making very, very little boost. Pretty much no boost. The only reason I know there's some is because the blow-off valve's going off. Car is super slow. I was having trouble with making boost when I parked it. Actually, I think it was doing the exact same thing that it's doing now when I parked it. So I don't know if there's a boost leak or what. I know I mentioned that wiring thing, but I don't actually think that it's that in this case because that was sort of intermittent. This is all the time, full boost leak. So when I take the heat shields off, I'm gonna check the wastegate by putting vacuum to it and see if it actually works. I have a feeling that I might end up needing a new turbo. If the wastegate's good though, then in the future video, we'll do like a smoke test. My biggest thing right now is getting the oil leaks to stop and getting the AC compressor replaced. That way the car is drivable. I'll drive it around with a boost leak. I don't really care that much. Obviously I want to fix it, but I just need this thing to be drivable. So we're gonna go ahead and pop it back in service mode and get that AC compressor switched out. All right guys, I actually have good news. I have the car up. I don't think I have to put it into service mode right now. Maybe if I want to take the downpipe off to figure out why my boost leaks are happening, but there is no new oil dripping from the turbo. I can see it underneath the back where the heat shield is. There's none from where anything that I replaced, there's no oil there. There is a lot of wet oil on the bottom of where the manifold bolts to the motor, and that's leftover residual from the valve cover. And I guess I didn't get in there good enough to clean it. So I'm pretty sure that all the oil burning off is just residual, based on the fact that there's like no oil down there near the bottom. Nothing's leaking that bad. So I'm gonna go get the proper wrench because I bought the wrong wrench for the tensioner. Also, the tensioner size of this tensioner is an OEM size. It's 30 millimeter. My old one was 21, and just some of the R56s came with 30 millimeter tensioners. So the aftermarket one is 30 millimeter. So I need to go buy a 30 millimeter wrench so I can loosen the tension on that belt. So more unfortunate news, I bought a 30 millimeter wrench. This is the only kind of 30 millimeter wrench that you can get locally and not buy it online. And it's angled on the end and it does not fit no matter what way you put it in there. So I have to take the U-brace off the top to loosen this tensioner. I'm really mad about it, but I guess I'm gonna have to do it. Stupid. So stupid. All right, so I have this in the locked position now. I was able to use that wrench from the top after moving all of this stuff out of the way. One thing that's really irritating is this intercooler pipe. I've never been able to get that out of there. It's always been stuck in there. So when I had everything apart, I worked at it for like 25 minutes and got it all loosened up and took it apart and then like lubed up the inside of it before I put it all back together. And it's been about a week and it's completely stuck in there again. I can't get it out no matter how hard I try, but I was able to get this thing out of the way and get that into the locked position. So now we can go ahead and take off the belt. All right, now we're gonna time lapse the install of the new AC compressor. All right, AC compressor is bolted in and the lines are bolted up as well. I don't have it plugged in. I don't have everything else hooked up yet. I just got a couple things to say. The AC compressor that I returned to UAC came with O-rings for the lines. I didn't really expect it, but it did. So then when I got the second one, I did expect it to have those. Just in case it didn't, I also bought some AC O-rings for this car from Rock Auto, from this company called GPD. All right, so here's 4 O-rings for the compressor. 2 on each side, 2 on each line. The new UAC compressor came with none of them, even though the old UAC compressor did come with 2 O-rings. So I looked in my package and I only had 3 O-rings that matched. So I took the best looking one from the old ones and put it back in, which is crazy. Like it didn't come with a compressor, didn't come in that package. Like, come on guys. This could set someone back like a week. That UAC compressor is $200. And then on top of that, comes with these super long nuts that don't have threads near the bottom. They don't work. They didn't fit. The lines are thick. There's like a little bit of thread sticking out past the line. If you use something like this, it does not work. I had to get the nuts off of the old studs and reuse them. UAC, do not recommend them. Get a different brand compressor. Not to mention when I called them about my situation, about being sent the wrong one, they told me I was SOL and that I had to work with Rock Auto to get a new one, which I ended up being able to do, luckily. But like, dude, come on, just take it back. Like I'll send you this one, you send me the other one. I'll even pay extra, but they were not willing to do that. So whatever, man, I'll get a different brand from now on. All right guys, so I had a situation and I just got out of the hospital this morning. So I'm not really feeling all that well. I'm gonna go ahead and buckle this all back together just so I can be done with it and get this out of the garage. I'm not really gonna narrate much of the process, but I'll catch back up with you when it's all put together. All right, I got the whole car back together in just under an hour. That's pretty good. I'll give you guys an update when I have the results. All right, guys, it is a million degrees outside right now, so we are going to refill the AC system. We're gonna do it the proper way. Here is where the low side is. Normally this is clipped to something, but I'm missing the clip that bolts into the tensioner. There's supposed to be a cap on there. I tried to 3D print one, but the threads are too small so that it doesn't actually work. So not gonna be able to use that. But we're gonna go ahead. I rented a vacuum pump and a gauge from AutoZone. We're gonna hook those up here. We're gonna get a vacuum pulled on the whole AC system, which I'll kind of show you how to do. I'm also gonna link a video, Chris Fix video in the corner that's like really good for this kind of stuff. That's really good at explaining how to vacuum an AC system and refill it the proper way. And then while that's vacuuming, there's a couple things I want to take care of. This headlight does not work. I think it's a wiring issue because if I plug it in directly with the car off, it works. But I think it's an issue with the harness. I might have like ripped one of the wires when I was doing something, so I have to figure that out. And also, I'm missing the 2 caps in the fender liner right here. One of them has always been missing, the other one fell out. So I 3D printed some new ones. I will link the link to this in the description. And if you don't have a 3D printer, I'll put a link to actually buy replacement caps in the description as well. So we're gonna fix that headlight wiring and refill the AC system. All right, so we got all of that hooked up. And just so you know, renting that stuff does not include this piece, which I figured out after the fact. So I found this in my toolbox because I know I did this in the past, so I must have bought this last time. And while I was digging through, I also found this kit that has a low pressure cap in it. So we'll be able to put that on the car when we're done. So basically what you do is you hook all of the hoses up like this. You hook the yellow hose up to the vacuum. Blue hose clips onto your low pressure. Having trouble getting it on there because it's floppy. Let's try this side and just make sure we don't need like special adapters for the Mini Cooper. Whew, I don't know. Okay, so before you break something, loosen this up before putting it on and then tighten it back down. And they fit just fine. All right, so these are both open. So I'm gonna make sure these are open. Actually, I'm gonna start pulling vacuum first and then open these. All right, so now that there's vacuum on those, I'm gonna close them. As you can see, we got full 30 vacuum on that side. This side is pinned past 0. There's not really a vacuum gauge on this side, so we'll pay mostly attention to this one. And we just need to make sure that that holds for like 30 minutes. All right, unfortunately, I looked for the boost leak to see if anything was visually disconnected because I can't make any boost right now and I can't find it. So I might have to buy a smoke machine. It could also be the turbo. So we'll figure out what that is. But for right now, I'm gonna concentrate on the headlight because I can't drive this car. I can drive this car with no boost. I can't drive this car without proper lighting. All right, at this point, it's been 30 minutes and we're still holding the same amount of vacuum. So that tells me that our repairs are good. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull vacuum on the system. I'm gonna run the pump for at least another 30 minutes. I'm probably just gonna keep running it till I'm done with this stuff, which is gonna take me more than 30 minutes. And that should get all of the moisture out of the system. So that way we can fill it with the AC refrigerant and keep everything in good working order. All right, so this thing has been vacuuming for close to an hour at this point. So I disconnected it and we're just gonna hold vacuum in there until I'm ready to start it and put the can in. I'm gonna do the rest of the work on the headlight. I pulled out the wire for this ring right here, so I'm fixing that right now by putting a new connector on there. And then I did find that the ground for the headlight is bad. So I cut off the ring terminal where the ground is bad. And I'm just gonna slice a new one on and then it should be good. We should be good with this headlight. All right, this thing's pretty beat up, so I gotta do some zip tie magic to make these caps fit. All right, so we got both of these in here now. As you can see, there's a lot of zip tie stuff going on right here. That's zip tied over there. And then I actually zip tied this thing to the wheel well because it's all falling apart right here. This is zip tied to the side here. This is zip tied down here, but it's in there pretty good now. And I could print out a piece, like a flat piece to go right here to cover this and maybe up here too, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. The wires are protected, which is cool. And then up here, this one's not zip tied or anything. The old one just fell out. This one fits really tight, so I really doubt this is gonna fall out. So I think we're all good. So I'll put links to print those in the description. Also just links for replacements in case you lost yours. All right, headlights working there. Headlights working there. So now we're gonna go ahead and start the car and fill the AC system. All right guys, that worked great. Man, I'm dirty. Ooh. But 30 minutes later, we have ice cold AC. So I'm gonna go ahead and return that stuff so I can get my money back. And then we'll see what we can do about this boost leak. All right guys, that's where we're gonna end it. I decided the boost leak fix would be really helpful to somebody as a separate video. So that's gonna get uploaded as a separate video. First, we have a new exhaust going on the white Civic. That's going to be the next video that gets posted, and then the boost leak repair video will get posted. So make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and share it if it helped you out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.